जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन। यमुना तीरवनाचारी यमुना तीरवनाचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा माधव गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदा यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन। यमुना तीरवनाचारी यमुना तीरवनाचारी यमुना तीरवनाचारी। हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Jayo Radha Vallabha Radha Vallabha Shri Radhe Jayo Jagannatha Jagannatha Baladeva Jayo Subhadra Jayo Gauranitai 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 Jayo Gauranitai Gauranitai Jayo Gauranitai Prabhupada 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 Jayo Jayo Prabhupada Prabhupada Jayo Jayo Prabhupada Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivijikacharya Ashtottara Shadha Shri Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premanande All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories also to the Guru and all glories to the Divine Grace, Prabhupada Ki Nam Om Vishnupādāya Krishna Preshāya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitināyane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshasarane I seek your permission to continue on your proof. I seek your permission. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatiruttama shloke Bhaktir bhavati naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So welcome all of you for today's discussion of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. We are reading from Canto 9, Chapter 9, titled as The Dynasty of Amshuman. And we are reading from verse number 18. Tatah Sudasastat putro Damayanti patirnripaha Ahurmitrasaham yanvai Kalma sanghrim mutakvachit Vashishta shapad raksho bhod Anapatyasva karmana Tatah Sudasastat putro Damayanti patirnripaha Ahurmitrasaham yamvai Kalma sanghrim mutakvachit Vashishta shapad raksho bhod Anapatyasva karmana Tatah Sudasastat putro Damayanti patirnripaha Ahurmitrasaham yamvai Kalma sanghrim mutakvachit Vashishta shapad raksho bhod Anapatyasva karmana Sanghrim mutakvachit Tatah Sudasastat putro Damayantir patirnripaha Vashishta shapad raksho bhod Anapatyasva karmana. Matajis. Vashishta Shapad Raksho Bhud Anapatya Svakarm Tataha. From Sarva Kama. Sudasa was born. Tatputraha, the son of Sudasa. Damayanti Patihi, the husband of Damayanti. Nripaha, he became king. Ahuhu, it is said. Mitrasaham, Mitrasaha, Yamvai, also. Kalma Sanghrim, by Kalmashapada. Uta, known. Kvachit, sometimes. Vashishta Shapat, being cursed by Vashishta. Rakshaha, a man-eater. Abhut, became. Anapatyaha, without any son. Swakarmana, by his own sinful act. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sarvakama had a son named Sudasa, whose son known as Saudasa was the husband of Damayanti. Saudasa is sometimes known as Mitrasaha or Kalmashapada. Because of his own misdeed, Mitrasaha was sonless and was cursed by Vasishta to become a man-eater, a Rakshasa. I'll read verse up to 28 because there are no purports. 19. King Parikshit said, O Sukadeva Goswami, why did Vasishta, the spiritual master of Saudasa, curse that great soul? I wish to know of this. If it is not a confidential matter, please describe it to me. 20 and 21. Shukadeva Goswami said, once Saudasa went to live in the forest where he killed a man-eater Rakshasa, but forgave and released the man-eater's brother. That brother, however, decided to take revenge. Thinking to harm the king, he became the cook at the king's house. One day, the king's spiritual master, Vashishta Muni, was invited for dinner, and Rakshasa cook served him human flesh. 22. While examining the food given to him, Vashishta Muni, by his mystic power, could understand that it was unfit to eat, being the flesh of a human being. He was very angry at this and immediately cursed Saudasa to become a man-eater. 23 and 24. When Vashishta understood that the human flesh had been served by the Rakshasa, not by the king, he undertook 12 years of austerity to cleanse himself for having cursed the faultless king. Meanwhile, King Saudasa took water and chanted his Shapa mantra, preparing to curse Vashishta, but his wife Madayanti forbade him to do so. Then the king saw that the 10 directions, the sky and the surface of the globe were full of living entities everywhere. Saudasa thus acquired the propensity of a man-eater and received on his leg a black spot for which he was known as Kalmashapada. Once King Kalmashapada saw a Brahmana couple engaged in sexual intercourse in the forest. Being influenced by the propensity of a Rakshasa and being very hungry, King Saudasa seized the Brahmana. Then the poor woman, the Brahmana's wife, said to the king, O hero, you are not actually a man-eater, rather you are among the descendants of Maharaja Ikshvaku. Indeed, you are a great fighter, the husband of Madayanti. You should not act irreligiously in this way. I desire to have a son. Please therefore return my husband who has not yet impregnated me. 28. Dehoyam manusho rajan purashashyakhilarthadayah tasmadasya vadho vira sarvartha vada uchyate. O king, O hero, this human body is meant for universal benefits. If you kill this body untimely, you will kill all the benefits of human life. Purport. Srila Narottama Dasa Thakura has sung, Hari Hari Vifale Janama Gunainu, Manushya Janama Paya Radha Krishna na Bhajaya. Bhajiya. Janiya Shunya Vishakhainu. The body of a human being is extremely valuable because in this body one can understand the instructions of Krishna and attain the ultimate destination of the living entity. The living entity is within the material world to fulfill the mission of going back home, back to Godhead. In the material world, one hankers for happiness. But because one does not know the ultimate destination, one changes bodies one after another. However, if one gets the opportunity to possess a human form of body, in this body one can fulfill the 4 principles of dharma, artha, kama and moksha. And if one is properly regulated he makes further progress. After liberation, to engage in the service of Radha and Krishna. This is the success of life. To stop the process of repeated birth and death and go back home, back to Godhead. Mam eti. To be engaged in the service of Radha and Krishna. Therefore, taking a human body is meant for completing one's progress in life. Throughout human society, killing of a human being is taken very seriously. Hundreds and thousands of animals are killed in slaughterhouses and no one cares about them. But the killing of even one human being is taken very seriously. Why? Because the human form of body is extremely important in executing the mission of life. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishna Vamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yam pravrajantam anupetam apeta krityam Dvaipayana viraha katara ajuhava Putreti tanmayataya tarabobhinedu Stham sarva bhuta hridayam munimanatosmi. Hare Krishna. So, a very interesting episode is going on, and we see a lot of kings are being discussed in this. But before we go into the context, we'll spend a few minutes glorifying Śrīmad Bhāgavatam on why it is important and how to approach the lessons that have been taught in this wonderful literature. In the Vedic parlance, the pedagogy, the way of teaching in the Vedic tradition, there are three ways usually. There are three types or three methods in which it is taught. Generally, in today's context, experiential learning takes a pretext, experiential learning of teaching things. But even this experiential learning was classified into three methods of teaching. One is to sashana. Sashana means to rule. One way of teaching is to rule. The other way of teaching is to befriend, to teach like a friend. And the other way of teaching is like a beloved, like a lover. So the Vedas teach in the form of ruling. It will give diktats. It will say, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to do this. So it will rule. It will not give you why. It will say, this is what you've got to do. That's it. So it is karta shashanatva. The Vedas does shashan. Shashan means it rules over the pursuer of the Vedas. That's how the Vedas approach in the way of pedagogy, in the way of teaching. The Puranas approach like a friend. They approach like a friend, just like a friend advises a friend. And then the poetry, Ramayana, it's a poetry. The poetry approaches like a lover, like a beloved. But Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, interestingly, applies all the three methods of teaching. It rules sometimes, it tells this is what you have to do. It also approaches like a friend, and it also approaches like a lover. So, it's a very unique, it is very unique because it is written by the Supreme Lord himself, Vyasadeva, who is the literary incarnation of the Lord. It is spoken by his own son, who is the erudite speaker of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, who is Shukadeva Goswami. And who is the audience? The audience is all the sages. Of course, Parikshit Maharaj was just the calf. Just as for Bhagavad Gita to come out, Arjuna was just a medium, but it was for the entire world. In the same way, Parikshit Maharaj was just a medium. A very interesting tradition in the Vedic parlance is, generally when the senior teachers are available in front of a junior, the junior should not advise another one in front of the teacher. He should not take a seat which is above the level of a teacher. He should not, for example, if the teacher is sitting on the Vyasasana, the student should not sit on an equal seat. It's a tradition, because then the knowledge will not flow. So that's the idea. And at the same time, when the teacher is present, the student should not be advising someone else in front of the teacher. That is called Maryada Vyatikrama. That is called breaking of the disciplic succession, or the etiquette, basically, the etiquette of receiving knowledge. But when Bhagavatam was spoken, it seemed as if this etiquette was broken, because Shukadeva Goswami was given the seat, who was a junior, and who was the audience? And in the audience, he had his own guru, who was Vyasadeva, and his Parama Guru, who is Vyasadev's guru, is Narada Muni. And they both are advising Shukadeva Goswami to speak. So they have given him a higher pedestal, a Vyasasana, and they've asked his disciple and the grand disciple to speak. And they are not speaking and listening as if they knew all of it. Vyasadeva and Narada Muni, it is explained in Bhagavatam and elsewhere in the Puranas, that Vyasadeva and Narada Muni are not listening to Shukadeva Goswami as if to judge him or to measure his knowledge of what was given to him by Vyasadeva, but Vyasadeva was listening with rapt attention, and as if they are hearing it for the first time. So that was a wonderful arrangement in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam itself. That's why Shukadeva Goswami is glorified. Tam Vyasa Sunum Upayami Gurum Muninam Yasvanu Bhavam. It is said because he has assimilated by his own experience and erudite, he's coming out with his rendition of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Because he has drunk the nectar of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam from the lotus lips of Vyasadeva. And if we take a contrast, in one of the chapters in the first canto, Yudhishthira is being advised by Bhishma Deva in front of Lord Krishna. So again, it's a very similar arrangement where a devotee is preaching in front of the Supreme Lord to Yudhishthira Maharaj, because Krishna says, I will not preach, now my devotee will preach to you. So Yudhishthira's instructions is quite elaborate. In Mahabharata, there is a whole khanda called Bhishma Khanda, where Bhishma Dev instructs Yudhishthira how to rule a kingdom. And why I am mentioning this is very relevant to this verse number 28, because this verse can be understood in many facets. It can be understood in a personal context, in a spiritual context, in a social context. Very important to see all these contexts, because when we talk about practicing bhakti, it is very important all these perspectives are understood. So therefore, it is very important we take, and so that is Bhishma Dev instructing Yudhishthira Maharaj, and there Bhishma Dev is instructing Yudhishthira how you should rule the kingdom. Yeah, he's instructing, this is how you should rule the kingdom, this is how you have to take care of your praja, who is citizens. Prakrishta jayate iti praja. Praja means one who is prakrishta jayate, one the king's, the only purpose of a king is to elevate the whole citizens to go back home, back to God. That is why they are called as praja. Prakrishta jayate. Prakrishta jayate means to get a higher birth. That is the purpose of praja. That meaning of praja itself is like that. But on the other end, Parikshit Maharaj has abandoned everything. He is ready to die. And now Shukadeva Goswami is giving him instructions. But we will see that Shukadeva Goswami is not watering down the instructions just because Parikshit Maharaj is about to die. Oh, he's about to die, I'll only give him 10th canto of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. No, he's giving instructions like this, which is quite heavy. We will see what are these verses and why is it relevant, because Parikshit Maharaj is interested to know about Saudasa or Kalmashapada. That is why we have to take shelter of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Because in the last verse of the first chapter, the sages inquire to Suta Goswami, Bruhi Yogeshware Krishne Brahmani Dharma Varmani Swam Kashtham Adhunopete Dharmakam Sharanam Gataha. They've asked, since Krishna has gone back to his abode, who does Dharma take shelter of? That's the question they inquire. That's the last question they inquire. And to this, in the third chapter, the Suta Goswami answers, Tatra kirtayato viprarsher bhuri tejasah aham chadyagamam tatra nivishtashtad anugrahat soham vah shravayishyami yathadhitam yathamatihi. So he says, Suta Goswami says, when Shukadeva Goswami recited Bhagavatam, there in the presence of Emperor Parikshit, I heard with rapt attention. Suta Goswami is saying, I heard him. And therefore now I am going to recite whatever I have heard, whatever I have partaken. And in that purport, Prabhupada, in the end of the purport, writes a very interesting line which caught my attention while preparing for this class. Prabhupada writes, one should hear with rapt attention from the real person. Then he can at once realize the presence of Lord Krishna in every page of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Prabhupada further goes to say, the secret of knowing Bhagavatam is mentioned here. What is that? One can give rapt attention. No one can give rapt attention who is not pure in mind. I'll repeat that again. No one can give rapt attention to the message of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam who is not pure in mind. No one can be pure in mind who is not pure in action. So, Yadeva vidyaya karoti. So one who is not doing action according to the scriptural injunction, his action is not pure. And if his actions are not pure, his mind can never be pure. And then Prabhupada goes further to say, no one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing and mating. We have to be pure in these four also. Why this is important? Because again Prabhupada writes in this purport about dharma, artha, kama, moksha, we'll come to that. But somehow or the other, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person at the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in the person in the pages of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. So this was very profound actually when I read this paragraph of Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, we are very fortunate that we are taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada to read Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. For us, the Suta Goswami is Srila Prabhupada. In the assembly of sages, we are hearing Srila Prabhupada. Now coming to the context of today, we have read about Bhagirata Muni so far and we are studying with verse from verse number 18. This canto is very interesting because after this canto we are stepping into which canto? 10. And this canto is talking about which dynasty? Amshuman coming in the Surya Vamshi. So, when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, the two dynasties are very important for us. The Surya Vamsha and the Chandra Vamsha. The Lord comes in both the Vamshas, as Raghuvamshi and the Yaduvamshi. The Raghuvamshi and the Yaduvamshi. And therefore you will see in this canto, most of the Surya Vamshi dynasty and the kings of the Surya Vamshis are discussed. And this chapter is titled as the dynasty of Amshuman. Amshuman's son Dilipa, and then his son Bhagirata, Nabhaga, and now we have come to all the way to Saudasa, who is also called as Kalmashapada. And we have seen how Vashishta Muni, now one may understand why these episodes are given. There are many reasons why we can understand these episodes are given. Vashishta Muni is a great devotee of the Lord. He has immense strength. We can see how sometimes in the previous chapters, he could even change the gender of a king. He can change the gender when he wants to become a male. He'll bless him that he can become a male, he can become a female. So Vashishta Muni also is a devotee of the Lord. And here from the 18th verse, we see the episode of Saudasa where he was cursed by Vashishta Muni. Generally, if you see in the scriptures, the name of the female is never said. If, for example, Draupadi. Was Draupadi the name of Draupadi? Actually, no. Why is she called Draupadi? Because she's from Drupada Desha. Why is she called Kunti? Because she's from Kunti's dynasty. What is her name? They don't know the name actually. Gandhari, because she's from Gandhar. Gandhari is not the actual name of Gandhari. Gandhari is denoted as the lady from Gandhar. Literal meaning of Gandhari is lady from Gandhar, lady from Drupada, like that. So in here, what's interesting, the Brahmani, the wife of the Brahmana, is denoting Saudasa as the husband of Mandhati. So here the wife is given a higher pedestal than the husband. You see, this is Vedic tradition. Vedic tradition was never chauvinistic or patriarchal as always labeled by the British historians. The Brahmani says, oh, you are the husband of... Why is the wife given a higher pedestal? We saw in one of the translations. Because Saudasa wanted to he wanted to curse Vashishta. But the wife says, no, you cannot. You should not curse your guru. He's your spiritual master. You can't curse your guru. So here, the wife is acting as a guru of the husband. You see, therefore, the wife is more glorious. So many lessons come like this. And you will see Rakshasa. The Rakshasa is again a very unique being because they can change forms. And here, the Rakshasa's brother whom Saudasa killed came and joined as a cook, and he was cooking human flesh. So Vashishta Muni found that out and then cursed him. And then because of that curse, he had to go and do tapasya for 12 years in the forest. And right now, you see this? When he wanted to curse, he didn't, and then he stopped. But at once, the king saw that in the 10 directions, the sky and the surface of the globe were full of living entities everywhere. What did you understand by that? He was about to curse the sage, but he stopped. At once, in all the directions, 10 directions, usually there are 10 directions, in the 10 directions he could see living entities everywhere. Because he's transforming into a Rakshasa. So for a Rakshasa, he will see living entities everywhere. He's no more a human now. So therefore, for a Rakshasa, he can see living entities everywhere because they are subtle beings. So he's transforming into a Rakshasa and he has to live the life of a Rakshasa for 12 years. And then while living like this, he sees a Brahmana. And then he tries to devour a Brahmana now, because he's a Rakshasa. And during this act, the wife is suggesting, I have not had a child, and please spare my husband so that I can have a child. And in 28, Prabhupada writes, he explains, and here a Brahmani, the wife of a Brahmana, is saying, the human body is meant for universal benefits, and if you kill this body untimely, you will kill all the benefits of human life. And Prabhupada explains about the significance of human life in this purport. So we will meditate on this for a few minutes. Now, why do we think human body is very valuable? It's a rare form. Why is it a rare form? We are not extinct though. Human beings are not getting extinct. Why are we still a rare form? Because generally in science and National Geographic they'll say, extinct species. Humans are not getting extinct. There are 8 billion total now, isn't it? Human population. 1.5 billion comes only from one country, Bharata. So why is it a rare, why is it extremely valuable? Higher intelligence? Okay. What type of intelligence? Yes, Prabhuji. Hearing. Because humans can hear to the transcendental knowledge. Yes, thank you, Prabhu. If you compare intelligence, animals have in one sense higher intelligence in terms of their 4 activities. Ahara, Nidra, Bhaya, Maitunamsh. Is it not? Prabhupada gives an example in one of the books. If you put sugar on the floor and switch off the light, the ants exactly know where the sugar crystals are. They don't need light to discover the sugar crystals. Right? They are quite highly developed senses they have. When you come out of Australia, the biggest fear we have got is what? Of the dogs coming and smelling your suitcases. They'll bring a dog and they make the dog sit. And if the dog sits next to your suitcase, you know it's found something inside the suitcase. Once a devotee got caught and they had to open all their suitcases. And she was thinking, I didn't bring anything. Why is the dog sitting next to her? And incidentally, what they found was, one of the pouches of the suitcase, she had maha flowers. So she didn't realize that she had put some flowers in because she didn't want to throw it. And the dog found out that there's fresh flowers in it. I mean, it was not fresh, it was dried, but it was still fresh matter. So the border security had to warn her that you're bringing flowers into the country, which is not allowed. And she said, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I had put some flowers. So the animals have developed senses. In one sense, they are intelligent in those ways in which they can use their senses. But what makes us humans different is they can inquire. Because when they go through difficulties in this existence, they can inquire, why is this happening to me? Because an animal will bear the difficulties. It will just quietly suffer. I had a dog, and it was going through a broken leg. And for almost 15 days, it stopped eating. It did not eat. We tried a lot of things to feed it, whatever it liked, milk, chapati, rice, it stopped eating. And we know when a dog knows it has to go, leave its body, it will stop eating. So many animals do this. They sometimes fast. But they don't fast intentionally. They are conditioned to do it. But a human deliberately inquires into his difficulties and works towards resolving his miseries. This is why a human birth is very important and very significant. A very important book that has really impacted me a lot is a book called Man the Unknown. It's written by Alexis Carrel. I don't know if anybody have heard that book, Man the Unknown. He was a surgeon. He was a French surgeon during the time of World War II. It's an old book, black and white times, 1940s or something. I mean, even before. He was well known in 1912. His works on surgery, especially suturing techniques and things like that. He was a Nobel laureate as well. He has written this book called Man the Unknown. He says, I'll read one line. There is a strange disparity between the sciences of inert matter and those of life. He says, we have advanced in analyzing matter a lot. But the problem is we are applying the same science to analyze life, which is the biggest disparity of science. This is his observation. This is not coming from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. He's a doctor, he's a surgeon. And it's a wonderful book actually. He analyzes. And even if people who want to analyze life, the various sciences that we have is anatomy, chemistry, physiology, psychology, pedagogy, history, sociology, political economy. All of these sciences want to study human context. But each of them fail miserably to give a holistic picture of who human is. Who that human being is. They fail because when you come to chemistry, they will they will say human body is just a bag of chemicals. Physiology sees it in a different way. They see it as muscles and veins and etc. So every science is still limited and not holistic in terms of defining who a human being is. Is it not? And here Prabhupada gives a wonderful definition of human being, right in the purport. Hari Hari Vifale Janama Gunainu Manushya Janma Payo Radha Krishna na bhajiya. So the only purpose of human existence is to do Radha Krishna bhajan. And everything else will be revealed to him eventually. So the science of studying human being is not by studying matter. And the question that he raises in the book, the man, the unknown, is given, the answer is given in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. That is why the Acharyas say, in one of the very interesting books in the Gurukulas, if you study in the Gurukula, in the Vedic Gurukulas, one of the books that is taught to the students is Hitopadesha. Have you heard of the book, Hitopadesha? The comic books that you read, Hitopadesha. In that, Hita Upadesha, Upadesha means to instruct, Hita means that which is pleasing. And one of the instructions is, what is the only wealth that a human being should pursue once he gets a human form of life? What is that? What is the only wealth that is worth pursuing once we get a human form of life? What is that wealth? Let's ask ChatGPT. It's interesting. One devotee asked ChatGPT, if we want to destroy this world, give me 10 points how to destroy this world. And it's interesting what ChatGPT came out with. And one of the important points ChatGPT came out with is create chaos and make the people confused and destroy their knowledge. ChatGPT knows how to break the world. So the only wealth that it is worth pursuing in the human form of life is acquiring knowledge, especially transcendental knowledge. Because that is the only wealth which doesn't diminish. Because in the Hitopadesha it is called Aharyatvat, Anarghatvat and Akshayatvat. This wealth will never get destroyed. It will always increase when you get more realizations. And at the same time it is priceless. It is priceless. In fact, there are many stories in the Hitopadesha, and one of the stories is there will be a wealthy king. And this king was so proud of his attachments of his wealth that his guru, the saint who used to visit him, he thought he must teach him a lesson. And the guru comes to the king and says, you know, there is something, and he becomes very grave in front of the king. The king says, Guru Maharaj, why you have become so grave? I have everything that I can give you. Why you are so grave? And the guru says, I have discovered a new news that I can foresee. The king says, what is that? The rishi says, I can see that death is very close to you. Death is coming, and it is coming any moment. That's why I'm very grave, and you don't seem to be waking up. It is coming very soon. The king says, what is that I should do then? The king becomes grave. I have so much wealth, I can do something. The king the saint says, well, but you are very safe because you have done a lot of pious credits. So your destination will be Swargaloka. You'll go to heaven and enjoy for a long time. But there is one small problem. In that Swargaloka, in the atmosphere where you go, you'll have many mosquitoes. So mosquitoes will trouble you there. And this king, you know, because he was puffed up because of his wealth, he says, I need to find a solution for this. Where? For the Swargaloka. After he dies, he's planning to find a solution for mosquitoes in the Swargaloka. He says, don't worry, Guru Maharaj, I'll take a mosquito net. And the Guru says, the mosquito net has a lot of big holes in it. For those who have used the mosquito net, you will realize. Because in India, we used to sleep with mosquito nets. And in the morning when I used to wake up, I don't know from where the mosquitoes would have come. There will be 20 mosquitoes inside the net. And I don't know how they would have got in, although the mosquito net didn't have any holes. So the Rishi says, the mosquito net you take will have holes in it. So somehow the mosquitoes will enter the holes and bite you. And he says, don't worry, I'll take some servants to stitch the mosquito net. And the Rishi says, no, needles are not allowed in the Swargaloka. How will you take a needle? After so much deliberation, the king wakes up to think, oh my God, actually I'll be dead here before I go to Swargaloka. So then he wakes up and then he surrenders to the Rishi. He says, now I understood what you're trying to teach me. So don't get attached to your material things because you can't even take a needle to where you're leaving. So what you're talking of your material wealth. So therefore, the only wealth that we can take is transcendental knowledge. Knowledge that we can acquire, which the spiritual knowledge that we can carry. And what do we do with this knowledge? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Prabhupada writes in the purport that the goal of human life, because scriptures say, what is the goal of human life? Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. There are 4 human ends. In today's day and age, the last 2 are removed. There are only 2 in between. What are they? Artha and Kama. Make wealth and have enough desire to make that wealth. And no matter beg, borrow, steal, but create as much wealth as possible. That is today's philosophy. But the ancient philosophy says everything has to be based on dharmic principles, the principles of dharma. You have to make wealth based on the principles of dharma. You have to create desires and work on your desires based on the principles of dharma. And if we so walk on the principles of dharma and still make artha and kama, then one becomes eligible to get moksha or liberation from this bondage of human existence. The whole purpose of human existence is to exit the repeated birth and death, cycle of birth and death. Is it not? Therefore, as I always say, getting into the school, what is the purpose of getting into the school? To come out of the school successfully, not to stay there eternally. Prabhuji, I like my 7th grade. I like to stay there all the time, Prabhuji. Not required. You have to come out, get into 12th grade and get out of the school. So the whole purpose of human existence is to get out of human existence. Is it not? But we see in today's society, now coming back to the social context, in the 17th century, this is all which went topsy-turvy in the 17th century. If you study economics, Adam Smith, have you heard of Adam Smith? This guy is called as the father of capitalism, capitalism specifically in economics. This guy has been the sole cause for the economical society that we have today. You guys take a step back, all of you take a step back and observe how the economics have been structured today. Adam Smith proposed, the gross domestic product, GDP, it's his brainchild. He also brought about something called as division of labor, which we have studied in our industrial management. So as an engineering student, I've studied industrial management. In industrial management, most of the techniques we study is the Japanese techniques, like Kanban, just-in-time manufacturing and things like that. We become experts of manufacturing. Why did we become experts? Because he says, the only way to become wealthy is to have self-interest, his philosophy of economics. Be self-interested, then your economics will grow. You'll become wealthy as a nation. So what does he mean? If I become self-interested in myself, then I will become richer. If I become richer, eventually the whole society will become richer. This is his philosophy of economics. What did he do because of this? He brought in the philosophy of invisible hand. Invisible hand means every person is working towards his benefit. Because he's working for his benefit, eventually the society will be happy, wealthy, and everything will be, in Aussie terms, hunky-dory. But see what has happened. You won't believe the Western world is now analyzing their whole economic model. They are now reanalyzing their economic model, because what has happened over the last 300 years is this economic model, though very promising, what it has preached, it has preached independence of man and woman. So what is, initially when we studied civics, what is the tiny most structure of a society? What is the foundation of a society? Family. Now that has been removed because of this capitalistic thought process. It is not the family which is the foundation of a society, it is the individual which is the foundation of a society. Is it all making sense? Because the family is a civics perspective. But now civics has gone gaya bhad mein, it's gone out of the window. Now what is important is economics, because these thought leaders will drive the whole society towards their thought process. So what has happened? Family has got replaced by individuals. Okay? Now they have said, women independence. Women don't have to be dependent on men. Men don't have to be dependent on women. You all can be individuals. What has happened? The whole Western society is fractured and broken. Families have got broken. Can we all observe this? Very apparent. Because independence. But the Shastra says there has to be interdependence in that independence. We all are interdependent. What has happened? Now you observe the economics. Even though the individuals have become independent, the global society has become interdependent. If China goes, Australia goes. Because we can't, everything comes from China now, right? Our exports of minerals are also, our mining industry depends on growing economies like China, India, Vietnam and Philippines. So if they go down, we go down. So although the economics has preached us independence, but the global interdependence is a fact. You see, it's all a messy situation. So therefore, we have to understand that what has happened, societies are alienated, they have become individualistic, and therefore, we have created an artificial competition in the society, and as an impact of that, our children start their education and finish their education with a big debt on them. The HEX, when they come out, there's a big debt. And whereas the university CEOs, you go to the universities and ask the salary of a CEO, how much does he earn? It will be in millions, while the student struggles to pay his debt. Making sense? You see how disparate the society is? It is a ridiculously hegemonistic society we have created. And we think everything is hunky-dory. It is not. And the poor children are being mauled in this competition to study more, to generate more wealth, and as parents and the leaders are creating such society. Now, added more to it come the advent of artificial intelligence. It is said intellectual jobs will be replaced. Even creative jobs will be replaced. Skill-based jobs will remain. One person was saying in a podcast, we were discussing as a part of our education, what jobs will AI replace? He says an electrician, a plumber, a bricklayer, they will all be not replaced by AI. But a programmer, even a general practitioner can get replaced with AI agents. You will have your own AI agents. You can program your own AI agent. You will speak to your AI agent, I'm having a headache, and your AI agent will say, by the way, Mr. Hanuman, 3 days back you had a headache and I had prescribed you Panadol and your test results have come, your results are normal. I would recommend you to stick to Panadol. If there is emergency, we will contact a human representative of mine. So your AI agent is talking to you. And AI agents will be authorized to give you prescribed Panadol and Nurofen, which anyways the general practitioners do these days. So this future is coming. Then what then do you train your children to become? What then are their natures? How do you engage their swabhava in doing what you want, and what type of a society we are creating? So therefore it is very important to know that for a human existence to pursue transcendental knowledge and to do bhakti, a favorable society should exist. If a favorable society is not existing and they are working like dogs and donkeys to earn a slice of bread, imagine how much energy is left in us to pursue bhakti in one sense. It's going to get difficult and difficult. So therefore, as a society leaders, as society thinkers, we have to understand what type of a society are we actually creating for our younger generation. But it's very difficult because the whole world is going from worse to worse. So therefore, how do we start? The solution is we have to train them young. When they are young, we have to train them to become thought leaders. Thought leaders means we have to train them an alternative form of education which reinforces what they learn in the mainstream education. In the mainstream, they only teach you material intelligence. But we have to give them spiritual intelligence. We have to give them the capacity to be able to think out of the box. For example, Mother Cow Dairy Farm is actually a very good venture to think out of the box. It's a wonderful venture. They are struggling, but still they have been able to prove that it's a wonderful venture. So therefore, we have to create devotees who can think out of the box, because What I observe, I deal a lot with children. Today's education system, you see, the higher the education one gets, the more egoistic the person gets. Have you noticed? Whereas Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. The quality of a highly educated is Vinaya. Vinaya means humility. But the more highly educated or material educated people are, the more egoistic they become. But Krishna says, if you have Vidya, you have to have Vinaya. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. So we have to train the children or our younger generation in such a way to harness these qualities by which they can pursue their bhakti very nicely. So, as a personal friend, what do we have to do? Prabhupada gives this solution in the purport of Canto 7, 15th chapter, 45th verse. The chapter is called as Instructions for Civilized Human Beings. There is a beautiful verse in this, it says, Yavan Rikaya Ratamatma Vashopakalpam Dhatte Garishta Charanarchayana Nishatam Jnana Simachyuta Balo Dadadasta Shatru Swananda Tushta Upashanta Idam Vijahyat. In this verse, Prabhupada writes, as long as one has to accept a material body with its different parts and paraphernalia, which are not fully under one's control. Our mind is not under our control. Our senses are not under our control. So what is the solution? One must have the lotus feet of his superiors, namely his spiritual master and the spiritual master's predecessors. This is very important. And Prabhupada writes in this verse, Jnanasim achyuta balo dadhad asta shatruhu. One has to sharpen the sword of transcendental knowledge. By how? By achyuta balaha. The bala is strength of Krishna. Who is the strength of Krishna? Devotees, specifically who? Prabhupada gives a very specific instruction in this purport. Yes, and who is the head of all the spiritual masters? Balaram. That is why he is Bala. That is why his strength. Achyuta Bala. To get the mercy of Krishna, the strength to endeavor in bhakti in this material world which is going all topsy-turvy because of our great economic thinkers who are... I wanted to give this example. You know Mr. Musk? Have you all heard of Mr. Musk? He realized that the world has got a big AI competition. You know, Google has got Google Mind, Gemini, then OpenAI has come with ChatGPT, now DeepSeek. There's a big competition in this arena. So he thought, I also want to compete. So what he did, he has opened a center in one state in United States, and which is the size of almost 10 to 20 football fields. And all that is there is all computers, massive computers. And he says he's put gas turbines to run power, electricity to this facility 24/7. You know what has happened because of that? Almost around 25 to 50 kilometers around that his computer center, people have started developing serious lung problems. They have started developing respiratory problems because he's running gas turbines. And when they asked a question, how did the EPA even approve this facility? Because you are not allowed to run gas turbines near residential areas. And who are the people living around this area? They are all lower middle class families who cannot fight in the court, who cannot file a case against him, and who are really downtrodden. So he's able to wing it. So what has happened? Adam Smith's philosophy that individual self-interest can make the society rich. Is it making the society rich? No, he's exploiting the society, this guy, in pursuit of AI. You see? So this is one example I'm giving you, and this is what capitalism does. Capitalism destroys the weaker sections of the society. So therefore, it is very important that as devotees, we gain the strength to pursue transcendental knowledge in a just society. We should have thinkers. We should be able to think and direct the society as a navigator, the ship towards a different human end. And Prabhupada writes that Vrajendra Nanda Nandana Yai Sachishuta Hai Balaram Hai Haila Nitai. So we not even take shelter of Balaram, we take the shelter of Nityananda Prabhu. When we take Nityananda Prabhu's shelter, by his mercy alone, he will give us the strength to be able to think properly, to be able to function properly in this unjust society, so that we can pursue and endeavor in this path of transcendental knowledge. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha. So our process is to understand how to have strength, shakti, to execute our bhakti. We need bhakti shakti, and that bhakti shakti is given by Nityananda Prabhu, because by his mercy we can get Krishna's mercy. Se sambandha nahi yaar britha janma gelatar. If we don't create that sambandha with Nityananda Prabhu, then our life will become a waste actually. So therefore we have to develop this. If there is no connection with Nitai, Balarama, then even though one is very learned scholar or a jnani, or one has taken a very respectable birth in a very respectable family, his assets will not help him. Eventually his assets will be destroyed. So I'll just stop here by summarizing that a human form of life is very important, and we have to cherish this form of life so that we can apply this form of this paraphernalia, this body, as a vehicle in pursuit of transcendental knowledge and applying to our actual goal, which is the fifth goal which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us. It's not moksha, but we want Krishna prema. We want bhakti as the destination. So to pursue this goal, this human body is very important. We have to nourish and take care of this human body to be able to apply in this fifth human end, which is bhakti, which is Krishna prema. And for that we seek mercy of our predecessor acharyas like Srila Prabhupada, Nityananda Prabhu and Balaram. And then we can then apply our intelligence in the right way, and then develop the right qualities by which we can attract Radha and Krishna in our life, and therefore make sure we don't take another birth and finish off at this very, very birth. So thank you very much. If there are any questions, corrections or realizations, if somebody would like to share.
Something that puzzles me is Vasishta cursed
Saudasa.
Yeah, because he served him human flesh. Vasishta is a Brahmana, right?
Yes.
It's an interesting setting, isn't it, that Vasishta was upset that the meat was human. That would, if we were to pursue that logically, that means he would accept animal flesh, right? Potentially, right?
Or flesh of a fruit and vegetable. Flesh is a general term used generally even for fruits. Because Sanskrit is spoken in a poetic sense, it sometimes says mamsa khanda. Mamsa means it could also be a flesh of a fruit or a vegetable as well. It's taken in a poetic sense.
It's not clear, is it?
Well, I took it like that, Prabhuji.
It's not. It's an interesting, because it specifically states that it was human flesh. Right? So he's upset. Anyway, just interesting to note. He's a Brahmana and he gets upset because he served human flesh. So in my mind, anyway, it's not that he's upset because it's not fruit or vegetables. So that kind of indicates that. But I think my question is, or it's an interesting culture, right? Because then he cursed Saudasa, right, to become a Rakshasa. Right? So this is a culture and an environment in which very foreign to us, very foreign. And it's interesting, in the pages of the Bhagavatam, a Rakshasa is a fairly common element that exists within that. Whereas for us, humans eating humans is pretty, even amongst the basest of society, that's a known, that's culturally unacceptable, right? So that does make it rather challenging. The environment within which we're hearing these pastimes does challenge us. Well, at least it's challenging me.
In fact, actually, Mahabharata, Bhima's wife, Kunti Devi says, you have to make an alliance with Hidimba. Hidimba's brother was a cannibal. Kunti says, it's good you make pairs, you marry this lady because she's in love with you, so you marry her because this tribe will help us during the time of war. So the way Vyasadeva writes in Mahabharata is no one is excluded for a just society. Even cannibals were allowed, wedlock with a Kshatriya, because it is their nature and it is their swabhava, so they were not ridiculed, but at the same time they were allowed to coexist in a society, is how Mahabharata says. And Hidimba and Ghatotkaja, who was the son of Hidimba, who was apparently a cannibalistic family, and then she transforms because of the association of a bhakta. But Ghatotkaja comes and serves in the war, actually, who is huge and who can devour the soldiers, and they get really freaked out looking at Ghatotkaja. So I think time and again Shastras say this just to say the inclusivity of the society, of even very indigenous tribal people also were allowed as a part of the larger civilizational society. And in this sense, if you see the Sanskritam, that verse where Prabhupada translates, it is called abhakshyam. Abhakshyam is that which is not fit to be eaten. But Prabhupada says served human flesh. So it's a translation that Prabhupada gives us to understand it. But Samskrita says, no, if you say word-to-word translation of that verse, Prabhupada writes unfit for consumption. That's all. But Prabhupada translates that as flesh of a human being in that context. But the Samskritam itself doesn't say that he was sad about human flesh, but it was abhaksya padartham. It is not fit for consumption.
Yeah. Well, we definitely don't want to offend Vashishta, do we? We don't want to, and I guess from that we don't want to offend devotees also, so we can be progressive in our spirit. But it's challenging. These stories are really quite...
Yeah. In fact, I've also said Bhagavatam creates these types of doubts on purpose. Because Bhagavatam has two things. One is to attract the suras. Another thing is to create a doubt to drive away the asuras. So Bhagavatam has dual type of preachings to say, it will create in terms of doubts in some asuras and say, oh, I can't understand this, but I better stay away. And that also is the purpose of Bhagavatam, to keep them away from understanding the right context. So Puranas especially has this guhya bhasha. It will talk in a way that it will bewilder the pursuer sometimes. So therefore, Bhagavatam sometimes, many instances, even in the 9th and the 11th canto, you will see it's a bit of a challenge to a sane mind to understand some pastime that has been described.
Or just appreciate its cultural settings are going to be very,
in
very
those
different
times,
in different ages.
Yeah.
And now the other question that I had was, where's just the notion that teaching is What was it? No, I wrote it down here. Rules, teaching by rules, teaching by friendship, teaching as a lover.
Yeah, the pedagogy of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. It's I read a blog about the pedagogy where Jiva Goswami writes this, how Bhagavatam teaches. I was checking this with Prana Prabhu when he was here actually. I got it from him.
From?
Prana Prabhu.
Prana. I wonder where he got it from.
I'll look it up, Prabhu. I'll share it. I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Is
interesting.
From Jiva Goswami, is it? Yeah.
Huh? Jiva Goswami. Whereabouts?
Must be in Tattva Sandarbha, Prabhu, if I can remember.
Just curious because interesting to explore it.
I think Tattva Sandarbha has a chapter, if I remember. It says Bhagavatam is self-illuminating. And somewhere there Jiva Goswami says that Bhagavatam teaches in many ways the pedagogy of Bhagavatam.
Interesting to explore that concept of being taught by one's lover or being taught by a friend. I guess, yeah, I'll check it out.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. I was just curious, you were mentioning about the consequences of this capitalistic society, the individualism. And it seems that without any kind of Vaishnava intervention, it is, destined for destruction.
Yeah.
And Prabhupada, he wanted devotees to be in powerful positions of leadership within society so they can direct society. I'm just trying to understand what is, how much do we actually endeavor for that as an individual or as a community where we actually seek to take these high positions of power? Because also we do book distribution Harinam in our own respective ways, but how do we actually take those, how much should we actually invest in those higher positions in government to try to set the course right, as an individual, as a community, or should we just follow on our own sadhana, our own kind of program?
Yeah, I think Urmila Mataji's visit was very pivotal in this answer to this question, because I think as we train younger ones, I can only speak for younger ones because my life is almost 50 now. I was speaking to Goma Prabhu, so it's 51 towards Vanaprastha. Understanding the swabhava and the nature of a child, and if the child is naturally inclined to do certain things, for example, if the child is naturally politically inclined, he has those administrative qualities. One has to invest in that quality rather than just pushing him to become a doctor or a lawyer. So that natural investment into the child actually, and working as a community. Because the world also, we are observing that the strength of ISKCON is a community living. And this community living has to be preserved. If we also become too individualistic, then it's a very wrong notion. So therefore, community living, at the same time investment in children or younger ones to invest their natures, which comes naturally to them, then it's not too much of an effort. And then probably, why not? If a child is naturally inclined to become a lawyer or a politician, so one must, and if he has the desire to do so, a community should facilitate that and help the child to get to it. And thereby, as a community, we can be influential in the decision-making of the society at large, I feel. But it needs the thought leaders to sit and think of this as a community. And not only talk of doing sadhana. I remember, I'll tell you an episode, one Mataji was very interested to do 64 rounds on a festival day. And the spiritual master chastised her to say, I did not ask you to do 64 rounds. In fact, you could have involved your husband and children to do the festival together. So why you're so selfish to do 64 alone? In fact, you should have engaged your family. So it's a community spirit rather than being a bhajananandi. Involve the society. So the community living is more important, I think. And if that catapults into investment into younger ones to think alike, then it would be real, think aloud and think outside the box. That will be really helpful, is what I feel, Prabhuji. And I follow channels from, Nilesh Prabhu from Avanti in London. He's doing that with youngsters there. I see some of his debates of how he's keeping them into Krishna consciousness, at the same time investing their natures and their propensities in the profession they want to take up with. So this is just my theoretical understanding, Prabhu. But a lot of thought process has to go behind the scenes of this. And we're still a young society, as you see. Just 50 years in. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, Sylvia.
Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the nice class. Prabhu, you mentioned how we should this human form is a rare form, as we have the ability to acquire knowledge, and we should acquire this knowledge from a bona fide and the right person. So we were reading 11th canto yesterday, and in that, when Krishna is talking to Uddhava, he mentions how even if one is unable to get a guru, one can become his own guru and understand the teachings. And then in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions how we should take this knowledge from a bona fide person. And in the purport, Prabhupada mentions if one is unable to get this knowledge from a bona fide spiritual master, one can take it through direct analysis or indirect analysis. And direct analysis is when one is able to understand this material world through their own experience, and indirect is when they are able to understand by hearing others' experience. But we don't see any of these statements come true, because around us we see all these materialistic people going through this hardship of work and suffering, but still it's very difficult to make them understand and realize. So how do we understand?
It is very difficult to?
Looking at these statements, it's very difficult to make them realize, even though they're suffering through so much.
Make the materialistic people realize.
Yeah. Because through direct analysis, one can understand.
Through direct analysis?
Yeah.
Analysis of what?
Of this material world, like going through suffering and still.
Okay. The way I understood that was, Sivya said, if you have to take the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I've not understood it rightly. And if not, you can also self-analyze yourself and be your own guru and try to analyze. And you're saying if that was true, a materialist should have come to the point of understanding that his predicament, that he's analyzed the material world, is a farce. But it's not the case, is what you're saying. So how do we save them? Is that the question? Is that roughly what you're trying to ask? So she said, you have to take a bona fide spiritual master. If not, you can be a guru of your own while analyzing things around you and understanding that this is a temporary world. So you can analyze by your own direct analysis. You can come to that understanding. But why don't the materialists come to that point of understanding that it is futile, is what her question is, even though they are engaged with matter. The reason is they are engaged with matter from a propensity of a user of matter, not as an analyst of matter. Makes sense? They are engaged with matter in the perspective of enjoying matter. They are not analyzing matter. They are not taking a step back and analyzing, is this good for me? Will this give me a higher dimension of life? Because they don't have even access to these 4 human ends. You ask any materialist, why do you, the big question, what is the purpose of your existence? They do not know. Their purpose is to enjoy senses. Their purpose is to enjoy to the max. You've got one life to live. This all comes from you know what is the root cause of all of this problem? One life analysis. They all believe they all have one life. Most of the Abrahamic religions come to this conclusion that you have only one life. So that this leads to the fault in understanding, oh, you've got only one life, let me enjoy to the max. But Vedic people don't believe in one life. So you will have to reap the benefits and punishments in the next life. So what they think is, because I have one life, I will enjoy to the max. They are engaging with matter from a propensity of a user or enjoyment. I want to enjoy matter. So they will never be able to analyze matter. what Prabhu was saying was Sankhya. A Sankhya philosopher can analyze matter. So that is direct analysis. I'm engaging with matter, okay, this matter is temporary. And then he develops a distaste for matter eventually. But for that also you need transcendental knowledge. A material knowledge will not help in that pursuit. They have to have transcendental knowledge. One of the transcendental knowledge is Sankhya. The 18 elements, you know. That's why it is 18 chapters. You have 11 senses, and then 18th is the Supreme Lord. So that's why that's why when you worship the Lord, if you come to South India, they go Shodashopachara. We provide 16 elements to the Lord. That's why we chant 16 rounds, actually. Why did we chant? Because 16 is the bondage. You have 15 plus 1, 16. And that 16 will deliver us to the 17th, which is Radharani, and Krishna, which is 18th. So there's Sankhya philosophy involved. But I don't think so materialists will be even inclined to read all of this or study all of this. Very rare, very few will come to that. But what's the solution is, maybe we should practice, we should demonstrate it by our own living as an example. And perhaps by Krishna's mercy, maybe some will. Just like Prabhupada could transform thousands during his time. Does it answer your question?
Yeah.
It was a deep question. Thank you. Prabhu wants to answer.
The notion that by the study of matter you can gain knowledge, certainly transcendental knowledge, is false. It's just, it doesn't happen.
Yes.
There is, by the study of matter, you know, empirical study of matter, we can understand matter,
Yep.
right, but not spirit.
Not spirit.
Not spirit. And although the inquiry may arise, but if you're inquiring from the wrong source, and so, you know, we know pretty much that by associating with the material energy,
Yes.
you end up with avidya,
Avidya, yeah.
ignorance.
You'll only come to the conclusion that spirit is not matter, but what is spirit you will not know. You say,
Yeah.
this is not that.
Yeah.
So that's all you'll get, but if you want spirit, you have to get into transcendental knowledge. Yes, Prabhuji.
But it is, and of course, you know, matter is maya, that which is not, is illusory. And so we get this notion that we can arrive at some understanding of things because we've discovered, you know, vaccinations, we've discovered this, that, or the other thing, so many things, right? That have, you know, we've advanced society by our knowledge and learning and by our study of matter. But of course, as a society, we haven't arrived at the understanding that actually we're spiritual by nature, not material.
Not material, yeah.
So we do need a guru.
Yes.
And we're not going to come to self-realization by study of matter.
Yes.
There are not very many examples of anybody who's done that effectively. Except maybe, you know, we see in the case of the Avanti Brahmana, studies the material world and has many gurus who teach him various principles. But, you know, that's elevated, very elevated. Yeah, so...
But the Avanti Brahmana had already taken a guru when he was young. So
that's right. So
then
he'd
he's
already
become a
got learning, knowledge from the right source. So, yeah, you know, we know that going to school helps us pass exams, helps us become qualified to pursue our our natural propensities, at least from the psychophysical. But the spiritual, there are not many schools that teach that. That's why we have ISKCON.
Yes. Yes.
And Prabhupada. Just a comment about Adam, what was his name? Adam Smith. Yeah, you know, he kind of articulated economics. But economic, you know, artha, economic development has been around for a long time.
Yes.
And it's part of the human
endeavor, yeah.
Yeah. just as there are brahmanas.
Yeah. It is significant. It's important for the societal function. Arjuna was an economist, actually.
Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it? Vedic culture balances out your natural psychophysical nature, which is varnashram effectively.
Yes.
But varnashram's meant to be used to support spiritual pursuits.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And, which is always a bit of a challenge in ISKCON. Varnashram means going and living on a farm, right? And living simply and back to nature, which I don't see a lot of our distinguished members doing anytime soon. But take what you've got, use it to chant 16 rounds, study the Bhagavatam, pursue your spiritual life effectively.
Yeah.
But then, and that not that we do that alone, because none of us, well, maybe there's a few of us here, but there's very few of us who can just do that only and forget about eating, sleeping, mating and defending. Yes. We need to balance them together, which is tricky, very tricky.
And given in the day and time.
Again, why we have a big community of devotees, because that's how we do that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Grantraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,